Democrats interviewing Democrats. There was a lot of that. Bathtub Boy and Monkey Man covered the president's speech and did the whatchamacallit afterwards, that little three-ring analysis circus.
The thing I'm struck by, going back to the president's speech, the word is verisimilitude.
Oh!
It isn't true, it doesn't have to be true, but it sure sounds like it could be true. That was what that speech was about, wasn't it?
Well, the fact that we have 36 countries fighting on our side in Iraq must be news to the soldiers over there. I don't know who these people are or how many divisions they have. I mean, all we read about in the papers are American GIs getting killed by IEDs and terrible accidents and all kinds of enemy action over there, usually in the battle of the Civil War over there. But the idea that we're one of 36 countries fighting the war, I think, is ludicrous. And why the president would throw that out there, I think it only opens them up to ridicule.
Did you see the...
Here comes the underhanded pitch.
Here it comes.
The gigantic softball lumbers to the plate. It's another exciting edition of John Gibson's Democrats Interviewing Democrats.
Oh, it didn't stop there. Oh, by the way, he really sucked, didn't he? Oh, an excellent analysis. I'm afraid I must agree. He really sucked.
On the subject of whether or not, flatly, to put it in, the only way it can, was this true? Mr. Bush said about midway through the speech, I have consulted with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, other members of my national security team, Iraqi officials, and leaders of both parties in Congress. I have benefited from their advice, and I have accepted General Petraeus's recommendations. Do you think the president actually sees it in those terms?
You know, I find the whole thing constitutionally bizarre. I mean, he's the commander-in-chief, and yet I thought that Senator Reid had a good question. If we're winning the war, if we're kicking ass, to use the president's lingo, how come we're not getting toward having a government over there we can defend?
Well,
good question, Dick.
Professional protester moment of the day.
Your protest has been duly noted and rejected.
Keith Olbermann is somebody who interviews people and spouts off on cable and has had some success doing it, and I think he's very talented, but I think those comments, Al-Qaeda, Ku Klux Klan, are so over the top, it's just beneath him. It's beneath the kind of erudition I would expect from him.
Do you even understand what he was talking about?
I think the argument that I've heard Olbermann make in the past about Fox News, and it's not an argument that I embrace, is that because it poses as a news organization and puts out dangerous misinformation and is a cheerleader for the Bush administration, that is misinforming our society. But you know what?
Howard,
they're entitled to do that.
Let me ask you this question. Who makes you weep more for journalism? Keith Olbermann or me? That's quite a question.
I think you both have plenty of opinions and are both paid to spew them on the airwaves.
At least I admit it.
Howie Kurtz, who just drives me nuts because he works for CNN, he works for the Washington Post. He never criticizes CNN in his Washington Post column, and he never criticizes the Washington Post on his CNN show.
His boring-ass CNN show.
Boring. And they don't dare fire him because they're afraid of getting nailed in the newspaper then. So Kurtz comes on and talking about Bathtub Boy, who said one day that Fox News was worse than Al-Qaeda and the KKK for America. It's just nuts. But so much of what he says is. It's not terribly unusual. He spews like that all the time because there's a big old giant MoveOn.org, Think Progress, Daily Kos, Huffington Post audience out there that is clapping its little flippers to get another one of those fish every minute. And as long as Bathtub Boy is throwing them those mackerel, they're slapping their little flippers together. Woo, woo, more, woo, woo. And so he'll keep it up. And I bet that guy called and was having the wife debate about me being a retard. I'll bet they love him. Oh, they tune in for Bathtub Boy. Let's hear what he's got to say now.
Resign.
Yeah, Fox is horrible. Gibson should resign.
John Gibson of Fox Noise. Resign.
It's been demanding I resign for years. I'm still, not only still working, I'm beating him.
Now take Gibby with you. Get the Gibson Radio podcast at GibsonRadio.com. You can even subscribe so you don't miss a day. That's GibsonRadio.com and click on podcast.